hello to everybody in the auditorium and also to all those streaming in through the social media platforms of GITAM University. I'm an independent journalist, a visiting faculty at the Kautilya School of Public Policy. And we have very special guests here today for this Changemakers conversation, which I'm sure promises to be a very powerful one. Before I introduce, in fact, tell you more about my guests, we would like to have some of our student volunteers on stage to come and quickly felicitate our guests with a bouquet of flowers, please. Neelam Krishnamurthy ji, Rajshri Deshpande. Mr. R. Krishnamurthy there is in the audience. Shekhar ji is there. For this Changemakers today, we have two women on stage who are crusaders of social change, of justice. It was in June of 1997 that a tragedy at one of Delhi's then premier theatre, Uphaar Cinemas, we saw a tragic fire that claimed 59 lives, injured more than 100 people. Among those lives lost were two young children, one 13-year-old boy, a 17-year-old young girl, a little younger than perhaps all of you here in the room. And for their parents, Mrs. Neelam Krishnamurthy, Mr. R. Krishnamurthy, also popularly known as Shekhar Krishnamoorthy. 26 years and on, the struggle for justice continues. The legal battle continues, where they took on the high and the mighty as absolutely ordinary citizens. Their hurt, their anger, their frustrations, it is beyond words. It is an unimaginable horror for any parent to lose their young children. They took on the mighty builders, the Ansal builders. Of course, there were some sentences that happened, but the sentences got reduced. They continued to influence witnesses. They continued to threaten. There were a whole lot of, in fact, points in the cases, which has been now captured in a mini-series on Netflix called Trial by Fire. It's named after the memoir that was penned by Neelam ji and by Shekhar ji. And it compellingly captures the pain, the struggle of the Krishnamurthys in Trial by Fire, where the on-screen Neelam Krishnamurthy is played by Rajshri Deshpande. She's powerful. I think Rajshri Deshpande, Abhay Deol in the series have captured, they leave you thinking, they leave you depressed, they leave you angry. So today, when we talk about Trial by Fire, the journey, we will also talk about Rajshri's, in fact, journey in terms of an actor. She's had some brilliant performances in Sacred Games. She plays a cop, a homosexual cop, Shobha Trivedi, in Fame Game. Among others, the Angry Indian Goddesses, also another very powerful project. But she also dons a hat as a social worker in Aurangabad in Maharashtra, where her foundation, the Nabhangan Foundation, has actually adopted 30 drought villages and is working on it. So, and we have Mr. R. Krishnamurthy here, who has been a constant pillar of support to Neelam ji, and of course, somebody who was grieving himself at the loss of his children and was trying to make meaning of it all. Let's just hear a loud round of applause to welcome our guests as we start this conversation. Neelam ji, how are you, ma'am?
Well, I can say we're still surviving. It's been a tough battle, and looking at the kind of a system we are living in, it's very difficult for ordinary citizens in this country to survive, to fight the rich and mighty, and it's just not the rich and mighty, we are also fighting the system itself. And as we are all very aware that the system is absolutely corrupt, be it the judicial system, there is corruption at every level. So it's not easy for ordinary citizens like us who become the victims of such tragedies to go and fight them. more so when you're fighting the rich and powerful lobby who can engage the best of the lawyers and leave you alone with the public prosecutor and our criminal justice system. I like to just say one thing very important here, that is a very accused-friendly system. There is no place for the victims in our system. You have a place for the witnesses, you have a place for the accused, you have a place for the defense counsels, but there is no place for the victims. It's only now in 2008 they've given you a right to appeal, but that too also in a high court. My plea to the government is that why do you give us a right only in the high court? Why not in the trial court? It's like building a house with a weak foundation. You can build as many stories as you want, but if your foundation is weak, you're going to come crumbling down. So if you've not laid out the foundation of the case well, you've not laid out all the evidence very well, how are you going to make sure that the conviction, that people are convicted and the conviction stays right up to the Supreme Court? So probably I'm here, I'll be sitting and talking to you about what are the obstacles we had and how we really fought the case. And over
We
to you,
also
Smita.
have students of law here. We will of course take in questions during the course of the conversation, but before I go to Rajshri, Neelamji, have you managed to heal in any way over the years? Has the healing process happened? Or is the anger still as fresh as the day it happened?
No, I thought probably I'll get a judicial closure if these people are convicted and they're sentenced in accordance with law. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So even it's not possible for closure for the parents who lose their children, because I always say one thing, no parents should ever outlive their children. That's one of the most traumatic things to have happened. So there can't be any healing, but yes, there can be a closure, a judicial closure. But that also hasn't happened in this case. I thought it would happen, but unfortunately still hasn't happened. Although Ansuls have been convicted twice for 304A, that is Rational Negligent Act in the main case, and thereafter they tampered with the evidence when the trial was going on, and they were charged under 409, that is breach of trust, which which invokes sentence up to life, 201 tampering and 120B. There also they've been convicted for 7 years, and the Sessions Court allowed them to walk free after 8 months, looking at their old age. Well, this is the card they always play. And so they're out again, which we filed a revision in the High Court, and we're waiting for the revision to be taken up. So we're not giving up. I think this is a long drawn process. It will continue. At least between me and Shekhar, I say, till the time we are alive, this fight will probably go on. It's a never-ending saga because of the system that we have. And nobody has done anything to bring about any change in our criminal justice system. They only come and talk about it, and they talk about the pendency of the cases, but the pendency is increasing, but you're not doing anything about it, and they'll never do anything because it suits all of them. So I think we'll have to continue bearing the brunt of it unless we have the younger generation, which are here, the law students, and the younger generation will take up this issue, and they demand accountability, and they demand that our justice system, there has to be a change, because if you want to give justice to the people, that's why you're having courts, and if you're not going to deliver justice, what's the point? You will end up, end up making victims more frustrated, and what will that lead to? That will lead to anarchy. People will get frustrated, they'll take law into the hands, and that's not what we want. We are a civilized society.
And which is why, in fact, their struggle has continued. And I think one of the most important things to note is Neelam ji wasn't a student of law. She wasn't a lawyer, but she studied, she persevered through the complications of the legal system to try and understand the entire intricacies of the case. And I think hats off to your courage and resilience constantly for you and for, of course, Shekhar ji as well. But what is interesting is that the actor who tells that compelling story on screen was actually a student of law. Rajshri, before I talk about trial by fire, give a quick sense to our students, because you grew up in Aurangabad in Maharashtra, and I think you wanted to pursue a career in cinema as a student of theatre early on, but your parents asked you to take up law. Did you grudge it? Was it forced on you?
Yes, I did graduate from Symbiosis Law School from Pune. But honestly, I grew up in a very humble family where, what you have to do is like, there was no dreams as such. We were 3 daughters, and the one thing my parents wanted was they should just study properly so they will get a good groom. So it was all that, they should be married in a good family, and that's what my father, who was a farmer before, and then he got into a government job. Then my elder sister is a doctor, my middle sister is an engineer, and I thought that law will be easier, that I don't have to study like my sisters, so I chose that, but I was not knowing कि बहुत पढ़ाई करनी पड़ती है भाई. So I of course studied, and but I was a theatre person since my childhood. But it was always extracurricular activities in my house, because everything like games. I was a judo player and even a theatre student. So all that is like, what you do after school. So it was all that. Then study pursued, and the protocol of life, you have to study, you have to find a job, you have to do well, you have to earn for yourself, find a space for yourself, then find a groom, get married, and then have children. So I broke that protocol somewhere, and I decided to quit what I was working in, and I decided to quit a high-paying job and go to theatre, which was an unpredictable
But you
space.
actually started trying to earn money at a very young age of 18
Yeah.
by
So
getting into the advertising industry itself.
Yeah, because I was, my parents, I come from Aurangabad, so I moved to Pune for my education, and my parents said that we won't be able to support you. So I found a part-time job in an advertising agency as a client servicing, and so they had given me a sonny, so that was my plus. But yeah, then advertising took over because I started earning money, and when you come from a space where you think that money is important, then you think that earning money is the most important thing in life, and then you start running for that money. And then there was a point in my life when I thought that money is not giving me happiness because I'm not growing anywhere. As a student, I was constantly working. So I was away from literature, I was away from my theatre, which I actually had in my childhood. But my growing up years, my youth, I spent entirely running for, that how I can earn lots and lots of money. But then there was a point in my life, in my mid-20s, I was going through a lot of depression, that I'm not growing anywhere. I'm creatively, I'm not finding my space, my life. And that time I decided to quit, and I felt that, I have to go back what joy was. And my joy was always performing. I was like a nautanki in my house. So I used to do, I was a Bharatanatyam dancer, I used to do mimicry. So theatre was my space, and I decided to, I decided that I'm okay to live a minimal life, but I want to find joy in my life. So I moved to Pune to Bombay and, joined Nasiruddin Shah's theatre group, and that's how I started understanding and, learning about cinema and theatre and everything. And then after a few years of struggle and hustle, I got Angry Indian Goddesses was my first big break.
The response to Angry Indian Goddesses, it wasn't a conventional project,
No.
Also something that did very well on the international, in fact, documentary and the film circuits as well.
Yeah.
So how did you sort of gauge the response? How did you prepare for, the role itself?
So before Angry Indian Goddesses, I did very one scene here, one scene there, and couple of stuff. I was also trying to learn many things, and I was not sure that what I want to do. But because suddenly the literature opened up, and when you start learning Chughtai to Manto to Parsai to Uday Prakash, Sharad Joshi, and many people, so you start understanding what you want to do actually. Angry Indian Goddesses gave me that space because I was portraying a character called Laxami, who's a house help and who's struggling a legal battle in her life. And it's angry, I don't know how many people have seen Angry Indian Goddesses. Have you seen Angry Indian Goddesses? Nobody.
How many of you have heard of Angry Indian Goddesses here? Okay, there are a few hands, but
Many
you
of
haven't been
them.
able to see.
Yeah, so it's a story about these 6 girls, and you know, and when they all come together in Goa, and then they all start discussing about their lives. So it's a story about these girls, women, you know, coming together and discussing. So when this movie got selected for Toronto Film Festival in TIFF, uh, you know, like that's the time I realized that my choices was good. I was very happy that these are the choices I took in my life of doing something unconventional, you know, different than the regular formula films. You know, because you do serials and you do films or commercial will give you immediate, you know, publicity. But when you do such kind of a films which gives you, which fulfills what you want to do and what you want to tell people, that these are the stories I want to tell. So this is how the journey of my, you know, all my storytelling happened. And then later on also I chose that cinema only, like, and I have traveled all over the world with my films, which is a festival films. Like I did S. Durga, which you know, which won Hivos Togar Award for India, and even Nirvana. In Manto, I played Ismat Chughtai. So all my choices, and I'm like honored to play Neelam, you know, in Trial by Fire. So yeah, I think.
And I'll talk about Trial by Fire in just the next few minutes. How many of you here have watched Sacred Games? Okay, that's a couple of hands. Tell us a little bit about, you know, when you finally, because I do know that initially when you're trying to break into the industry, guys, can we have a little silence here in the room, please? So when you're trying to work into the industry and you are an atypical outsider into the industry, not somebody who has a cha-cha mama offering you roles there, offering you easy auditions.
Yeah.
So for Sacred Games, what kind of a challenge was that? What was your reaction when you realized that you had sort of, you know, landed a role there?
Yeah, so Sacred Games happened because Anurag Kashyap had seen Angry Indian Goddesses and S. Durga, and he keeps actors in his mind, I guess. And then he told the casting director Mukesh Chabra that please audition this girl for you know, Sacred Games. And Sacred Games was the first web series essay, and Netflix was just entering the game at that time. And so yeah, I auditioned, and then he chose me for the part. And it started with, it was a very small role initially, but then after the first scene, Anurag said, I have to do something, I have to change.
Nice.
And then he started writing, because Anurag being Anurag, he, you know, he sees the actor and he says that, okay, she has a potential, or we can play more with it, with this me and Nawaz chemistry. And then he wrote a lot of scenes, and yeah, that's how Sacred Games happened.
I think that's the power of Rajshri's performance, that the director chooses to rewrite a script. It's brilliant. You know, ma'am, Neelam ji, coming to Trial by Fire now, when the team first approached you, that they wanted to adopt your memoirs into the screen adaptation, a mini-series. And I think in the last 26 years, the two of you haven't found it within you to go watch your film, not just in a screen, but anywhere. Because when Uphaar tragedy happened, the film Border was screening. What was your reaction? Were you willing to let the story be told again? Were you afraid that you would have to rewatch all of this play out on screen again, and this would sort of dig into all your deepest injuries, your deepest scars, your deepest traumas again?
It was not only about be able to that I'll have to see it all over again. The worst was I didn't want it to be made into a film, because our children died while watching the film. So I've been very averse to Hindi films. So I wasn't keen at all that this should be adapted into a film. So when Sanjay approached me, Sanjay Jain, he's also co-producer of the series along with Endemol Shine. So I actually told him, he says, see, first of all, Shekhar first convinced me, and Mr. Tulsi, who's also my lawyer, he says this story needs to be told to the world. It's a very inspiring story. You must let the world know that how you fought such a big builder lobby and this entire system. So I was somehow convinced And I agreed. But then when he asked me, he came to me with a proposal for a film. And he said, what exactly are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for someone who can handle this subject in a very sensitive manner. I do not want any melodrama. And so he said, okay, he goes back and he comes back to me and he says, I think it's better you don't sign this. No, not for the film, let me look for someone else now that I've spoken to you. I've sat and discussed a lot, I know what you're really looking for. Then later on he approached me with the Endemol Shine and he says, I'm to rope in Prashant Nair. And then Prashant came and met me. I told him, I said, see, I want you to handle it in a very sensitive manner. I don't want any melodrama. And there were certain do's and don'ts which I actually told him very categorically. One of the things I told him, I have never cried publicly and I don't want you to show her crying, which I think a lot of people raised an issue, why did she cry on screen? But that was one of the conditions. I said, I am a strong person and I don't cry publicly at all. I don't want you to show it. So he said, okay. He respected a lot of things that I told him. And that's when it went about. And when it was ready, they sent it to me. It was a rough cut. I actually couldn't think of watching it, but they said maybe, we'd like you to watch it. Netflix was keen on it. So one day after about 10 days, we put it on, watched it for about 10 minutes, and we put it after the scene when she suddenly goes to the hospital and calls out for my children. So that just broke me down and we just stopped it. Well, again got a call and after 10, 15 days gathered courage once again and we put it on just to see from the point that legally there shouldn't be an issue because that was at the back of my mind because there are a lot of other cases which are still going on. That's why when we sat and watched it and then I told them, okay, go ahead. But it was a very difficult watch and actually had both of us in tears when we were watching the series. After that, I've not been able to watch. And
I mean, I must confess, it wasn't easy for me to watch Trial by Fire at all. As a journalist, there are stories that we have covered very intensely, closely. Neelam ji is somebody we have spoken to in our news bulletins in the past. But to sit down and watch that series again, to go through the pain that everybody there, because Neelam ji, Shekhar ji also came together. They formed the Association of the Victims of Uphaar Tragedy or AVUT, and Neelam ji is the chairperson. Rajshri, when you heard that you were going to portray Neelam Krishnamurthy on screen, what were the thoughts that were running in your mind? And you are somebody who I would call a method actor perhaps. So what did it take, the kind of homework that you did to get into the role and to be able to do justice to it?
So, of course, I didn't get that much of time to prepare in the beginning because we had just a month and they finalized me last minute. So, of course, we couldn't meet because it was third wave pandemic at that time and Prashant wanted me to follow the script first. So he said, I want you to just go through the script first and then, later on maybe the book. So I started with the script, which was like a proper bound script, and of course I had seen some of Neelam's interviews, but if you see this series, it is more than that. What happens is when you finish the interview and then you go back home, how is that? When you get up in the morning and then you know that nothing happened yesterday and again have to get ready to go to the court. And that is not just for 1 day, 2 day, 5 years or 10 years, for 25 years.
26 years now.
26 years now. And so for me, it was like, of course, the tragedy is there and it is like, deeply affected me. But it was the hope. It was that courage, that strength of these two people and the whole team that they're doing this every day. And so for me, that was the thing that every day I used to get up and I said, like, whatever happens, because every scene was very difficult for me. And where you are physically going through it, mentally going through it, psychologically you have to get inside it. But the emotional truth was the most important part. And as we said, of course, the first thing was no melodrama. Because if it's not affecting here, it will show on your face. You know, the moment you have a more this thing, it shows that, okay, you're trying something to do it. So that's why it has to be a very internal process for me. And so of course, finding that emotional truth every day. But it's because I think, you know, though I had not met Neelam at that time, but I thought, you know, she's just sending me energy, ki, okay, you can do it. Like I always used to think that every day morning she must be saying that, you know, okay, Rajshri, just, I know you will do it.
But did you both have a series of meeting to tell each
No.
other your expectations? You
No.
hadn't met at all?
No,
before the role?
we didn't. Not throughout the, like we shot almost 1 year, but we never spoke to each other during that time. And
Was that like a sort of a thought about?
yeah,
thing
that's
that you,
like, yeah, basically Prashant wanted us to find, you know, he said that I want you to find Neelam within yourself. I want that courage to what Neelam already have it. Otherwise what happens a lot of times, you know, he didn't wanted me to pick up any mannerism or something. He said, you find Neelam, how you want to portray. So it's basically a lot of times it happens that as an actor, as an artist, you have to reach that level, but of course you're not living that space. But you have to reach that level where you're actually feeling that pain. You cannot actually feel it like 100%, but you are there. And anyways, we were going through third wave pandemic also. So me as an artist, of course, I go through, like, go till that level of living that space. But, you know, even the environment is also was such a way where, you know, the whole world was dealing with oxygen issue.
Yeah.
There were so many people were sick. In fact, my mother was in the hospital at that time and she couldn't get the hospital for 2 days. So there was so much was already happening in the world. The healthcare was in disaster at that time, and that's where, you know, like where I'm portraying Neelam on screen. Here I have to get up and go for that scene, remember all the lines and portray the exact emotion, be in that environment also because you're shooting also, and not to cry. Because the scene was, you know, such way that's so powerful where I used to cry before and I used to cry after. But throughout that scene, I had to keep that Neelam inside me. No, you know, that strength has to be there. Even whatever she was saying, even like I still remember all the court scenes, I used to be like, you know, howling after the scenes, but till that scene, I had that strength. So, you know, it's all that, you know, as an artist, you have to have that strength inside you that no matter what happens, you have to tell the story.
But do your portrayals also change you as a human being after, especially such powerful, in fact, characters
Absolutely,
that you play?
absolutely. It starts from the Angry Indian Goddesses where I portrayed Laxami. I think that's what, you know, that's what I'm saying, that literature changed me. My social work changed me. The kind of characters I portray, like, you know, be it Ismat Chughtai or Savitri Bai Phule or, you know, Laxami or Durga, everyone changed me as a human being. They evolved me as a person also. So no matter what happens, I don't know whether I'll be able to portray something which is derogatory for women or, you know, something in a different way. I cannot. I'm okay with not being famous. I'm okay with not being trending. I'm okay with not being following a kind of a formula. I'm absolutely fine because here I'm portraying Neelam. Imagine like, you know, someone who's a hero. So she's my hero than any trending reels over there.
That's true. You know, and before I come back, in fact, to Neelamji again, I do want to ask you though, as a, you know, you said you're not famous. We of course think that you have a very different kind of respect and fame today, and you were there in Fame Game too.
Yeah.
How was it working with somebody like a superstar like Madhuri Dixit, you know, and having a character that was so strong and so different?
True. Yeah, again, you know, Fame Game also, I chose to do that story because it talked about, you know, a cop who's a gay cop and their story. And though being, LGBTQI community, I'm also learning a lot. I work closely with transgender community in Bombay, and every day I learn from them because, you beat their pronouns, beat how to, handle things on ground, the way you deal with them. So I was also learning, and Shobha, because as a gay cop, I learned more in fact. So me and Madhuri, we never had scenes together because I don't know if you have seen Fame Game or not. She's missing and I'm searching her. That's the story that she as a superstar goes missing, and I'm as a cop and the officer who's finding that what has actually happened to her. And because of her identity, she has to go through a lot of sexism also in their workspace. But I'm really glad that the whole community welcomed me very well. They, they wrote about the whole, the Shobha Trivedi's character, that how it is, and so many, people, so many community people had approached me saying that this is exactly we all are going through. So I'm glad to portray such different kind of a characters on screen where I'm telling people's story. See, at the end of the day, we all want to see our story on a bigger screen, right? We want to see, our friends, our mother, sisters. So you feel relatable. You feel that, oh, that's actually my story. And I love being in that space.
Are there any students here who are students of acting who are interested in acting? Or somebody who thinks that they might have a shot? I mean, an honest answer though, show of hands. Okay, I think there are some voices that are trying to push each other's names. They're not being honest right now. I'll come to all of you for questions in just around in the next few minutes. Make sure you raise your hand so that our student volunteers can come to you. But Neelam ji, I mean, in these 26 years, I know you said that you've never cried in public. I remember somehow, I think it was in a film somewhere, somebody said that if I cry too much, it may just take away my anger, which I need to channelize, or it may take away, my sense of pain that I need to hold on to. But which was the most, you had so many challenges. You faced betrayals too. Which was the one or two biggest thing that you found the most daunting, that took the biggest toll on your spirit when you were fighting for justice?
The day I went and deposed as a witness, and when I was being cross-examined by the defense counsels, that is the day it took a toll on me, and I was completely shattered, because when I had described how I found my children's body in the OPD block of AIMS. So I was being cross-examined on those lines, and the defense counsels were actually making fun, and they were laughing when I described this. So I was so shocked. I said, how inhuman, how insensitive. How could they, laugh at me when I'm, describing how I found my children's dead body. So I actually broke down in the court. That's the only time, and I felt very bad. And Shekhar wasn't there in the court at that time because he had to be examined as a witness later, so he wasn't allowed to be inside. Fortunately for me, the judge who was there, she's a lady, she's very sensitive, she immediately stopped. She said, we are going to adjourn the matter today. Please call her husband from outside. She knew that we were a couple, and she says, please take her home. That was the day, and yes, when I came home, I took an overdose of sleeping pills, and I did try to take my life. That's a confession I have to make. And I think Shekhar pulled me out of that. He took me to the hospital. We had a gastric lavage done. I was brought back home. And then he told me, he says, well, this is what they want. How can you be so weak? I mean, you have to fight this. You promised your children that you're going to get them justice. How is it going to work? So I went back to the court to be cross-examined by the lawyers, and I told the CBI counsel, I said, you're not going to stop me. Because if they misbehave with me, I'm going to give him a slap right across the face and tell him, and show him his place. And I was prepared to do that. And I actually told them, I said, had this happened to you, you wouldn't even be able to stand here and get yourself cross-examined or even come to the courts to get justice. I actually told the defense counsels this. So that is one moment. And I think after that I became stronger and stronger. And each time they tried to create obstacles for me, created problems for me. I've been threatened a number of times in the courts. You know, a whole lot of lawyers, once there were about 30 lawyers who came to attack me physically because I was in Patiala House. We had a hearing in the High Court, so Shekhar was there. And they tried to physically harm me. I was told by this lawyer who was the president of the bar, unfortunately she was also a lady. She said, I don't want to see you here. She said, don't you know who I am? I said, whoever you may be. She said, I'm the president of the bar. I said, well, even the president of the country cannot stop me because it's a public place. I have a right to seek justice for my children and I'm going to continue coming here. She says, acha, tum aise nahi manogi. Chaliye. And you know, she had about 30 lawyers with her and they all came to physically harm me. And that's the time I said, listen, I'm in a fit of anger. It was an immediate reaction. I said, don't think I'm scared and I'm going to hit one or two you before I die. So hit me. So I was, by the time some public had gathered and there were 2 media people who were there with the cameras. So after seeing all that, she just asked them to restrain themselves. It's different that the media people had captured it, but they never came and showed it because Ansal had approached them not to let that be televised. And so this lady lawyer also managed to convince them not to show it. There were various instances, even in the court, I was openly abused in front of the judge, the kind of language that was being used. But somehow I got used to it, and I do feel that it is not how the defense lawyer should behave with the victims. Because the victim, I very strongly feel, if there were no victims of crime, we do not need courts, we do not need judges, we do not need lawyers. And if you cannot give me a place in this system, in this very court, then scrap the courts. And these lawyers who are there, they are the officers of the court. It doesn't behove them to behave so badly with the victims. You are doing your job. Please represent your client. I'm not saying don't represent your client, but don't get personal with the victims. So these are various things that I've faced, which I think need to be rectified. The lawyers themselves, I'm sure there are a lot of law students here, I would like them to remember this thing, never get personal with your, with the opposite, whether it's a victim or whether it is the client or any other person. So don't do that, or if it's a witness, don't try to browbeat the witnesses also. So please maintain that respect and dignity. It's a very respectable profession.
Thank you, ma'am. I think, it takes a lot of courage to be able to confess and tell people that I was on the verge of taking my life. And from there to now, where she perseveres for battle every day. Neelam ji, I mean, words are just not enough. And I'll go to the audience. I just want to take one quick reaction from Shekhar ji here. And then the volunteers, please raise your hands, the ones who have questions. Our volunteers will come to you with a mic. There's somebody here. Sir, I just wanted to ask, was Neelam ji, were you always this courageous, or is it the tragic incident that somehow, to quote a Camus, that you actually found that invincible summer in you in the depths of winter?
Neelam has always been very courageous, and she's an achiever. We are in business together. And I used to be out of Delhi for 20 days in a month. So she used to do everything, taking care of the factory and taking care of the children. But when this tragedy happened, I did ask her, what are you going to do? The only thing she told me was she wants to get justice for Unnati and Ujjwal. I said, I'm with you, and I'll be with you throughout. But when we started this fight, legal battle, we didn't realize, we thought it's an open and shut case. But it's taken us 26 years and we're still fighting. And when we wrote this book in 2016, we realized that it has not reached the masses. And when somebody approached us for the film, Neelam was averse to it because, just as she explained, that he lost the children while they were watching a movie. So when I told her that, look, whatever we are doing, it has reached the masses. And one thing what we are doing is to bring in a fire safety culture because fire safety matters. So we said, no, it has reached the masses and Trial by Fire can do it, and it has done it.
Right.
And today, I'm very proud of today's generation, today's younger generation, who have written a lot of, mails to us and WhatsApp messages, that they are getting, very, conscious about the fire safety in public spaces. And we've also been told, we have never visited any multiplexes or any standalone cinema, but people do come and tell us that, yes, things are improving and much more to be done. So I hope that our association, which has 28 families and who have lost 59 members, and out of 59, there were 23 children, all below the age group of 20, and the youngest being 30-day-old. So we hope that this generation, when they go to any public spaces or multiplexes, they have to take care and ensure, because Uphaar being a cinema, which was, like you said, it was one of the best cinema halls that was being told to us, and we have been visiting that place, did not have, basic safety norms, like the emergency lights were not functioning, the PA system was not functioning, the exit lights were not functioning, and moreover, the authorities had allowed them to put extra seats in the gangway, and one of the exits was totally blocked for Ansal's private wing box. My children were sitting in A4 and 5. Had there been a gangway and an exit, I'm sure today they would have been alive. So we don't want any other parent to go through what we are going through for the last 26 years. We have done a bit, and we want that people should join our fight. So our motto is, let's work together for a safe India.
So can you just stand up once? I want the students to see you here in the hall because, he himself, he had a flourishing singing career. He was a singer. He had performed in Tamil albums, and then everything in his life changed. Let me now take in questions from here. If we could have a mic here quickly, please. In the front, second row. Tell your name and who do you want your question. And then anybody in the back row, raise your hands, please, so that we can have a mic there. Okay, then we'll go to you. Please.
Ma'am, good afternoon. I'm Ashish Palle. I'm a student of MBA here at GITAM School of Business. My question is for both of them, actually, because the first question is for Neelam ma'am, because I was just reading through the Google about your tragedy and all that, and my main question is that how are you able to gather that courage, and because the legal system in India takes ages to actually deliver the verdict and get things processed, and many victims and their families actually lose hope by then. So how are you able to keep up at hope is my first question. And this second question is for ma'am, Rajshri ma'am. Ma'am, how do we actually break the misogyny of women in acting? Because many families have that kind of stigma saying that acting is not for women. Acting is a very dangerous field. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions. Rajshri, would you like to go first with the part of the question?
Yeah, of course, there's because I don't come from any family, film family background, or even not from any kind of artistic background. So it was very difficult for my parents to, accept that I want to go to acting. So that's the reason it took me many years to actually, convince them that, okay, this is actually my love. But initially also when I started working, they had reservation. They used to tell me, why you want to work in, such kind of a films like Angry Indian Goddesses, which doesn't release in India, or Durga or Manto, which nobody is seeing here. It goes to some, Rome or Toronto or US and UK and everywhere, but not in India. Why don't you do a television serial? So I had to tell them that, I'm not able to relate to these characters. I relate to the characters which actually, it's a smaller films when, over there. So even Sacred Games also, there was a little this thing because it has a, intimacy and all. But my family, initially they had a little reservation, but then later on, they said that, okay, you are a good actor.
That you are.
So तुमने seen
That for sure you are.
So I was kind of relieved in that, and you have to educate your family. If you love something, then you cannot just put a pressure on the family that, okay, this is what it is, like a rebel. It happens, you have to kind of, somewhere you have to do it. But I'm just saying that a lot of young students are here. If you like something beyond what you're doing now, then you have to educate your family that this is also a profession. Be it, sports, or be it painting, to be it acting, to dancing, even be it being a stand-up comedian. Whatever, everything is a profession nowadays. So you have to educate them that this is how it is. You have to teach them that, it's not a bad profession. See, this is how it has happened. Show them, these are the actors, this is how they've achieved things. So they will also learn, and they will also give you that kind of a support. Otherwise, what happens that if you take a complete rebel step, then you are not even with the family also. And somewhere I feel as an artist, it's very important to, have that bond with your family. Like, don't just run away from things. Be with them, make them understand that you like this. Because today's world, I'll tell you, it's so difficult because the technology has gone here, but mental health illness has also gone up there, where you constantly are judging yourself with how you look, how you behave, how you talk, how you dress. Are you thin? Are you fat? Are you fair? So in all of that, you need people. And for me, it was very important to have my family, my people with me. And that's the reason I had to kind of, make them understand that this is what I like and this is good. See, look at these literature. Look at how Ismat Chughtai is wrote. Look at, how the world is going. So that's how
And I think it doesn't really, harm you to keep a channel of communication open with those you love.
Yeah.
More often than not, you hesitate in asking something. It doesn't really it should actually be helpful if you're asking. Neelamji, to the question, how are you coping with all this at home? And, the financial cost of the entire legal process.
Yeah, that's one thing. Plus, I'll first just like to answer what he asked, one very important thing, that knowing very well how the case takes decades and the victims get hopeless. That is not what I thought. My limited understanding of a criminal justice system was what I saw in the films. You go to the court, 3 to 4 hearings, and that's it, because I'd never been to a court myself. I'm glad trial by fire has brought that forward for ordinary citizens in this country, that it takes decades and you still don't get justice. That is the hardcore reality of life. So yes, that's one aspect. The other aspect, when you ask me what kept me going was when this happened, I read the papers and I read the reports which actually spelled out that it was completely unavoidable tragedies. My children didn't have to die. They went into a place for entertainment. What I got was the dead bodies. I did not want any other parent to go through this, because after I read that reports, I realized they could all have been saved had the owners complied by the fire safety norms. Had they given them the required exits, had the exit lights been working, had the PA system been working, had there been an exit available which is as per the rules, what I realized was that every single rule in the book violated. That's why I realized that the lawbreakers are much ahead of the lawmakers. We do not respect laws. And who's supposed to enforce and govern these laws? The government agencies, which are absolutely corrupt. They want to compromise everywhere. So that's when I decided I need to work towards this to ensure that this doesn't, no other parent goes through what I've gone through, and that will be a tribute to my children. And also, the most important thing is I had promised my children that I will get justice for them. That is the promise that has kept me going every single day. Every single day, first thing I get up and do is go into my children's room and sit there, and I revisit that day. I remember the promise, and I get all my energy from there, and then I'm ready to fight again. Although I know maybe nothing happens, because I don't go to the courts with any expectations. I always tell everyone, what will happen? I said nothing. So if some positive judgment comes, we are pleasantly surprised. Although we've got a lot of positive judgments, we've got them convicted from every single court. But yes, they were allowed to walk free, keeping in mind their old age. Our present Chief Justice himself says that our country's got two parallel legal systems, one for the rich, one for the ordinary citizens. When he is aware of it, I hope he will make some changes, because that is exactly what's happened in this case. We were ordinary citizens, as though our children were children of lesser God. Their lives didn't matter. But Ansal's age mattered. Who allowed the Ansals to seek adjournments? Who gave them adjournments? This is the same system, the judges who allowed them. Why punish the victims? By taking their age into consideration and not sending them behind bars. What precedents are you setting? Have you succeeded in causing a deterrence in the system? No, you haven't. That's why after Uphaar, we've had innumerable fire tragedies, and each time I see them, I feel very pained. I saw Amre Hospital, Sam Hospital, Kumbakonam fire tragedy where 90 children died again. These all tragedies could have been avoided had the Supreme Court come down heavily on Ansals and sent them behind bars 20 years back. We could have saved all these thousands of lives. So my request to each one of you sitting here is, whenever you visit a public place, please ensure the exit lights are working, the emergency exit is available, the public address system is working, they have fire extinguisher which are installed, and if you can spare a second, please check the expiry date of the fire extinguishers. These are important things, but they go a long way to save lives. Each one of us sitting here, we don't know when something happens. I hope it never happens to anybody sitting here or anybody else. But a precaution is always better. We need to be prepared, because we don't know when a fire can occur, but at least we are well equipped to handle it. We don't have a war every day, but we maintain an army. Yeah. We don't have a fire every day, so we need to maintain the fire gadgets to avoid any incident. That's all that I ask.
Thank you for working constantly to raise that consciousness. There was a young girl there. Let's take two questions, one from you and the person here. Yeah, please give the mic quickly. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Tanmay Konatala, and my first question is that during the past incidents, I was like, it's wrong if you question. From the last few days, I just realized that if you question, they will give you a name tag like whether you're an arrogant or else it's wrong to question your higher authorities or something if something goes wrong. It's fine. I'm just in university right now and I have my parents to say what's wrong and what's right. But what in the case of the middle class families and someone in the case of if something goes wrong, courts are the one whom they trust right now. We have strong judiciary system and strong laws, but the implementation is not going on. It's very hard and difficult for a middle class family to go and approach to a court if something goes wrong, because it takes ages, in the sense years. They are frightened to even go out to get the justice. This is my first, so how can we change this?
How we can change? Let me take a question here. Please, can we have a mic quickly? Somebody raised, the one with the glasses. Quickly.
Very good afternoon, ma'am. I am Rushan and I am a law student. So I have one question for Neelam ma'am and the other for Rajshri ma'am. Ma'am, as a young law student, when we study what we study in a theory and when we go to the courts as an internship, we see a very stark difference of what exactly is there in theory and what happens in practice. So ma'am, what do you think as young law students and the people who will be becoming young lawyers, we can make the justice delivery system more accessible and something that is more victim-centric?
Okay.
And second question for Rajshri ma'am is, since you are also a law student, you chose something which is very unconventional as compared to the norms that we have in our society. I like to write poetry as well. So how did you manage things studying law, which is a very diverse and it takes a lot of time to study, and at the same time pursuing something which you have a passion for and you like doing it?
Right. Okay. Rajshri, go ahead.
So, should I start from her?
Yeah.
What I understood was,
How do you change the system?
yeah. See, I'll tell you, after watching Trial by Fire, I'll give you a very personal story. My mother, she read the book also. And then till the time I was just waiting for her reaction and all, and she finished the book, and she told me a story because I had a elder brother who passed away when he was 3 years old. He had fever and all that. And I was not knowing the story that how he passed away at that time. And she shared that how the medical system failed to save my elder brother. And how she wanted to do something, but she couldn't because the whole family gathered. They said, you know, we cannot. Because of course, they come from a very humble background and all. And though she wanted to, she couldn't. And the first thing what my mother said after finishing the book, she said, I wish I would have thought. And that's the change Neelam bought for us. Neelam said, don't put everything under the carpet. Stand up and fight. If my 80-year-old mother can realize this, then we are, you know, we तो मतलब हमारे तो हाथ में अभी यार, हम लोग तो अभी चुप ही नहीं बैठना चाहिए. We should talk about it. We should stand up and say that, you know, no, this is not right. In every field, you know, she has paved a path for all of us that, you know, whatever happened, see, it's 26 years I'm fighting. So, आप लोग तो अभी शुरू कर सकते हो. So, we have hero who has shown us the path, now we have to follow. So, the young girl over there, see, I'll tell you, किसी के साथ भी हो सकता है ये, है ना? Anything can happen. We should be ready. We should be educated that in case if something happens, even with me or even with you or even with others, if you're seeing that something has happened to your friend or your relatives or somewhere else, tell them that, see, this is what Neelam did. We can also do it. And that's exactly how we should see things that, you know, we have, history should not repeat. And whatever has happened, we should not repeat that again and again. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And to the question on you're balancing your law studies with your passion of acting.
Oh, yeah. See, I joined law because I was very good at moot court. My first year was I was very happy, full like thumb, you know. But then later on, because of course, I joined advertising, so I couldn't pay that much of attention to my law studies. And I was doing some theater, like, you know, shows also. And then that took over. So I was giving half time here, there. बाद में बताऊंगी. मतलब पढ़ाई कैसे की. But yeah, it was very difficult to manage my law studies and theater also. So I had to give up my theater at that time and just do law studies because, you know, you have to pass, कुछ भी हो जाए. तो pass तो होना ही था. But then the moment I finished, I did my graduation, I decided to move to advertising because that was giving me immediate money, work and stability according to my parents. So I had to give away, but you never know. See, this is how law has come into my life as, you know, Neelam's journey. You never know, maybe I'll do something else later on, because life doesn't stop, studies never stop. You know, you can always study even in your 60s or 70s any time. तो पता नहीं शायद आगे भी कर लूँगी कुछ masters किसी में.
Neelam ji, before I take the next questions, just an answer to how do the young students here, how the young law students, they can't work pro bono right from the start. They also have to work under senior counsels. How do they help in making the justice system more accessible?
I quite agree with the young man here who said that there's a stark difference between what you study and what you actually go to the courts. There is definitely a lot of difference. I come across a lot of interns who come and join the seniors law firms, and they're always eager to learn. They want to understand what this Uphaar case is all about, because I think each one of them has done that. I think one of the most important things that you really must remember when you're going to start practicing as a lawyer, respect the victims. Do not get personal with them. Respect their rights. They're there only to get justice. Don't see them as your enemy just because they're in the court to seek justice. Because your client has deep pockets and he's ready to give you a lot of money to make sure that that victim goes away from the court because he's well conversant with the facts. Do that. You'll be doing a great service to your own profession. Respect all your seniors, and there is no end to learning in this case. Let me tell you that. You can keep on learning even if you've reached at the age of 60 to 70. Law is such a profession. Every day you come across learning new things. So don't think that you have studied law, so you know law very well. You will have challenges every day in the court. You have to interpret everything. Your reflexes must be very fast. And one of the most important things that I'll tell all the law students here, which I have learned, if you get a brief, don't scan through the documents. Read each and every word, each and every line. You will find very important information in those documents. That's what I did. We read 45,000 pages.
Amazing. Can I hear a loud yes from the students when it comes to being more sensitive and respecting victims?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A quick question here, sir. And then anybody else in the back? We'll take that question right next to you after this.
Neelam ma'am, we respect your presence here in GITAM University, and I wish and our prayers are with you to ensure that you get enough strength and finally the justice will be delivered. And I have a few observations rather than questions. I was following the case very closely, and I understand that at some point of time, I realized the fact that because the accused is educated, the punishment has been waived off. It was rather unusual or amusing to me because, if they're educated, they have to be more cautious about how the system has to work. And the safety should also be recognized by the people who are educated. So that is one important aspect I felt very bad. Second aspect is, I lived in a society where if something happens at my place, the entire ilaka or the place people came to the rescue of me. But we are slowly moving away into a different direction where if something happens in my family, nobody cares for it. So probably the society has to really mature enough to sensitize with the people in and around us and understand that the other people's suffering is our suffering. And we have to move ahead in our life for the welfare and safety of other people in our lives. Otherwise, it has to be that it is like somebody has a problem, okay, fine, no problem, let us not worry about it, we'll see Netflix.
Right.
We should not be into that particular environment where somebody else's problem is somebody else, our problem is our problem. Probably we have to come together in order to understand each and every person's life is very, very worth living.
Right.
And that's it.
Thanks for sharing those observations, sir. Important points. And also, unfortunately, crime and education really, there's no sort of a proportion that if just because they're educated, crimes are not committed. They're more hardcore criminals, people who have access to education and power. The question there was a young boy who had raised his hand. Can we have a mic there quickly, please? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Yes. So good afternoon, Rajshri ma'am and Neelam ma'am. It's great having you here and listening to your experiences. So the question I have is for both of you. I mean, both of you are involved with strong emotions. That is, you channelize them and you convey them to a large crowd, maybe through portraying, through writing or through any other action. The main question is, when you're dealing with strong emotions, you fall to emotions. There's a time, when you just are prone to those emotions and you fall under them. So was there ever time for you people like that? And if there was, how did you recover from that stage, is my question.
Okay, I'll just take another question here from this young girl. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is to Neelam ma'am. I'm actually going through a loss currently, a loss of a parent, and it's been my immediate reaction to when I found out about how my mother died was anger. And I was involved with the court proceedings and being in the police station with my uncle for some time. But then later I found myself dissociating with the truth, and then I wanted to be away from it. So my question to you is, how did you not let other emotions while you're grieving overpower your, stance to find justice?
What's your name?
Madhuri.
Madhuri, I'm going to come and hug you after this, but first of all, very sorry for your loss. And ma'am, you could.
Hey, Madhuri, first of all, very sorry for your loss. I know what you must be going through. I can actually empathize with you after having gone through the similar loss. Yes, you asked me very valid questions. How did I didn't let any other emotions overcome it? And well, the reason here being, I lost my children, the most prized possession. There's nothing more important, more precious to me than my children. So after that, nothing else mattered. So nothing else could interfere with it. Nobody else mattered to me after that. So that was the sole purpose. That was the only mission in my life. I concentrated only on that. That helped. It was like in the Gita, the Krishna only concentrated on the eye of the fish. That was what I did. So for me, that was the thing, nothing else, nobody else mattered. That's what I could do, and that's what I tell people. If you have a mission, I don't think it's difficult, it isn't impossible. It may be a little difficult to achieve your goal, but it's not impossible. You can always achieve your goals. If you decide to do it, a lot of hard work, yes.
Rajshri, any thoughts also to the question that any moment when you feel like giving up, how do you recover from that moment really?
Yeah, it happens, like a lot of times you want to give up. You feel that I should not fight, I have, life ahead. Such kind of a suggestion which keeps coming in. But, when Neelam said, that, it's not just for her, it's for the entire universe. What she done, and because she stood up, I think somewhere I'm safe. And when I've learned that thing, and I feel that if I stand up, then someone else also will be safe. So, whenever I think of giving up, like a lot of times I've been working in social work from past 10 years. And on ground, I work with Marathwada-based drought villages. I work very closely with farmers, and I see atrocities on ground a lot. And I have to keep telling them the same thing, don't lose hope. You have to fight. Otherwise, you must have heard that farmers committing suicide. Because they think that, there is no other way. How are we going to fight with the powerful? How are we going to, talk to the bureaucrats? How are we going to talk to the government and get our, dues? So because there is a lack of bridge over there, they always think that we won't be able to fight with them. So for me, my major work is educate them. Give them the basic necessities so they don't have to, go to that level of, committing suicide or going through that atrocities in life.
Very important.
So I'm educating them with the policies. I'm educating them, educating the whole village, working on the groundwater so my farmers can do farming. I'm building schools in the villages so the kids go to the school and have awareness about many things. I'm working on the healthcare in the villages so they understand the importance of the healthcare. So it's, that's what exactly Neelam and Shekhar did, is like the fight started with the children, but it didn't remain in that. The fire and safety law regulation is for all of us. And that's exactly, I think, if each individual think in that way, that it's our responsibility that to stand up, because if I do that, tomorrow my younger sister, younger brother, or the neighbor or someone will see me that, look, she stand up, she stood for that thing, so I can also. So that's how, the chain will happen. So nobody has to go through that atrocity.
And can we just have a round of applause here to support Madhavi also?
Yeah.
Who found that strength within to be able to stand up and share what she's going through. And to all your friends, I hope they are there for you. I hope they are able to help you with the courage that you need in this moment. We'll just take the last 2 questions because we are out of town now. Somebody here raised a hand? Yeah, please go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to salute your courage. And so my question is, as a law student, we will get clients who are actually the wrongdoers. But then there is a term called innocent until proven guilty. So what are your suggestions to those lawyers or law students who will be getting clients like this, who have committed the wrong, but then they have to represent that person in the court of law, because everyone should get the right to be heard. So what
Everyone has a right for defense. I think it's a question.
But I respect that, and also the whole, we have such a adversarial judicial system where you are innocent unless proven guilty, right? I quite agree with you. And I'm not averse to it also that the lawyers have to come and defend their clients. Please go through the entire evidence. And if the evidence is there, enough evidence, it is for the judge. Your job is to assist the courts. You just tell them what is the best evidence, if it's there, if it's not there, and whatever, of course, there are a lot of legal lacunas. And if you're against that, of course, you'll have to do that job also. I mean, if you're standing there as a prosecutor, you'll have to make sure to bring in all the evidence on record. And if you're a defense counsel, you'll have to rely upon various judgments, which have actually, that's all the best you can do, because you can't change the evidence. How the superior courts have dealt with such cases. Put it across, do your job in the best possible manner, because you have to do that irrespective of who your client is. Let the courts decide.
Okay. I will just take the last 2 questions now from, one question from Shekharji, if I could just quickly ask him. Shekharji, there was that student who wanted to ask that, how do you keep fighting? But there's also the question that somebody who wants to move on, if you're continuously fighting, all of us tend to box away our pain, our memories, but then this one tragedy, this one incident also starts to define you as who you are. For you, it became your entire identity. Were there moments when you wanted to just box away these memories and try and move on in your life? Did that ever happen?
Never, it never happened because when my children died, my son was 13, my daughter was 17-year-old. There were a lot of suggestions from the families that, because we were in late 30s when this tragedy happened, to have another child. But my answer to them was that my kids were not toys. That I go to the market and buy another one and continue with my life. So moreover, it was a promise made, a conscious decision not to have a child and fight for justice for them. Like I told you earlier, we are fighting not for ourselves, we are fighting for the society. So whatever me and Neelam are doing and Avut is doing is basically to bring in a fire safety culture. That's very important. That's the subject we are working on, and we have also, approached the Law Commission to bring in a new law dealing with a man-made disaster. Because all these tragedies, whether it's Uphaar or whether it's Kumbakonam or it's some hospital, the perpetrators are brought under 304A, that is rash and negligent. He said you can't take, like man-made disasters as a road accident or something, as just a rash and negligent act. There should be a law wherein, they should be punished so heavily, they should not be given a bail immediately. 304A, even the police station can give you bail. So we want them to bring in a deterrence in the society. There's no, most of these public places are owned by corporate heads. So I don't know why the government is shying away. The paper, even the law commissioners agreed with us, yes, there has to be a separate law for this. And that's collecting dust in some obscure corner in the thing. So we want that, yes, it needs, to fight a battle like this, it needs a lot of patience and perseverance. And people should not give up. People do fight for their property and other things for 30 years, 40 years. Why not to get justice for the children? That's very important.
Thank you. Thank you for showing us the path, sir. Can we, as a group here, pledge, when he's talking about awareness on fire safety norms, all of you young students, going into cafeterias, going into theaters, keep an eye out about your environment, about the norms being followed or not. Can you do that? Yes. A loud, resounding yes. Can we hear that? Yes. Much better. Rajshri, as we end the conversation, what are the next projects that we can see you in? Is there a Fame Game 2? Is there a new project? And how are you balancing time between Nabhangan in Aurangabad and your international travels, your movies?
Nothing as of now, which I can. There is something I'm working on, but I won't be able to talk about it.
Classified.
But I'm Nabhangan. I'm working on reviving a river in a village and planning to build a school in another village. So that's it for now.
Now the school, is there some place where the students can get connected as volunteers
Absolutely.
to come work on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? If they're willing to travel to Marathwada and be on a project, they are welcome. They can come and do the research and work on like groundwater, or maybe the healthcare system in drought areas. So they are always welcome
So
to
do
do that.
look up the websites for Nabhangan, for AVUT, the Association for the Victims of Uphaar Tragedy, and I think we can go on and on, but this is a conversation that will be special for me. I'm hoping that all of you are going back with a lot of food for thought. Thank you once again, Neelam ji, Rajshri, Shekhar ji. Could we have you on stage as well, please? Please join us, and may I request the Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Jaishankar Variya, to please come up on the stage and felicitate. Shekhar ji, if you could please come up on stage as well. Guys, let's have a loud round of applause for the real heroes in our life who are battling it out every day. Thank you so much, sir. Please, sir, both of you, if you could go in together. Thank you so much for all the questions for watching in.